listening to DAT Poker Podcast, the DAT Poker Podcast, but is now hijacked by the most popular television show in poker at the moment. This is Game of Gold. Everybody's talking about it. Really well received. The feedback on Twitter has been great. We've just watched Game of Gold episode 3. We've done recaps for episode 1 and 2. Head back into Daniel's YouTube channel if you want to catch those. And of course, if you haven't watched episode 3 of Game of Gold, do not watch this podcast. Head over to the GG Poker YouTube channel. Watch that because we're going to spoil a whole bunch of stuff, talk about hands and talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the back rooms and the different strategy stuff. So check that out before you watch this podcast. Hit the pause button, come back and listen to us talk about it and contribute. To jump into the comments, we read them to see if you're interested, if you enjoy it, what you enjoy. This is going to be good for going forward. So GG Poker can take the pulse of the poker community and see what works and what maybe needs to be improved or whatever. We're not there yet, though, because we're having fun. Episode 3 dropped today. We all watched it. And it was a poker-heavy episode. Daniel Negreanu, of course, facing off against Maria Ho, Robin Poker, and Yo Viral in the third sit and go here. The one that we know about that has the most coins. We still don't know how many coins are going to be in the fourth sit and go that Jason Kuhn for Daniel's team is going to be in. And all the crushers have been saved for that fourth, even though we don't know what the coins are or what the format's going to be. Is it winner take all? Is it random? We have no idea. So that's going to be interesting. We'll talk about that as well. Terrence, we're 3 episodes in now. General thoughts on the format and the poker. And I know you're not a reality TV guy, but is this getting you excited?
Yeah, it's still fun. I mean, it's reality TV, but it involves people that I know and like. So that aspect of it is fun, and it's got poker. And yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to like it. I think I said that going in. I didn't expect to like it, but I've been having fun. It's been a fun 3 episodes so far. After the first 2, the stakes are even higher. You know, not just what you talked about with the coins, but also that you've got a couple teams that are in a little bit of trouble, including Daniel's club's team, and you get to see how they react under that pressure, and you get to see everybody getting really emotionally invested, except maybe one jungle who's maybe a little less emotionally invested as he falls asleep. But even I can tell, he gets in the spirit of things. But a lot of this head, this show you mentioned was very poker heavy, just like episode 2. But it was wild. Like this episode, had way more wild hands, in my opinion, than episode 2. Like a lot of funky stuff happened, which was, I thought, a little surprising given the lineup.
So, Daniel, to reset going into this match, you were in the third match for your team. Jason Kuhn in the fourth. You guys flipped to see who would go third and fourth. You're in last place. Your team is in last place after 2 of the 4 matches. This is going to require you to do quite well, and Jason do quite well, because the final or the lowest total coins of a team is going to be sent home. You don't want to be sent home on GG Poker's reality TV show early, so you're going to have to play some good poker here. Thought process going into this match here, given what happened in the first 2 matches.
Yeah, I first wanted to add some my own thoughts as well on sort of the show, because I was one that when I left and I shot the show, I told everyone in the poker world, I said, this is going to be the greatest show you've ever seen in poker. I've been in poker for 30 years. I've never been involved with the production this in depth. We're talking, and I'm not even joking, behind the scenes, you're talking 100 cameras 24/7 filming all the different rooms. Think about what that means for a post edit. You have a hand and you've got guys digging in from all 4 back rooms. You're getting reactions from the table to create a really high end show. You throw in the music and all that sort of thing. And it was super exciting. Now, you mentioned even more pressure now because I don't want to go home, right? This is so fun. I'm having a blast, right? But, the first 2 heats didn't put us in a good position. So I was kind of, to some degree, I mean, I felt like a third is not going to do it, right? I mean, really, if I get fourth, third, Kuhn is just like, now he's got to play must-win poker. So I thought to myself, we got to lock up at least a 1 or a 2 spot. This one heat, as you guys have seen, and it is a little more poker heavy, and I want to touch on that. It's hard to satisfy everybody, because some people are like, oh, I hate all the drama reality stuff. I just want poker. Other people say, I don't want poker. I want all the drama. So it's going to be, as I said, each episode is going to be different. This one's poker heavy. The next one probably will start off, with the final anchors playing off. And then from there, I'm sure there'll be some more of the reality TV aspects as we go into the next round. So For me, as I said, my focus is on like a top 2 finish, and this heat of all of them, like you'll see, we went way deeper than the first 2. Like, after Robin Poker busts, we're 3-handed. We're playing. The chip leader didn't even have 20 bigs. I mean, we were playing super short stack poker, so it was anybody's game, if you will. And it was a lot of pressure, but I love the pressure. Unfortunately, as you guys have already watched the episode, third place.
Going into this, I'm curious, given the mystery amount of coins for the 4th match, did you guys talk about what you thought the coin distribution might be when you were talking about strategy for how you play this one? Did you go, okay, well, could be worth every winner take all, could be random, could be, did you guys go through some of the different options there?
Well, I mean, it's a guess, right? Our guess was, we're thinking in terms of the producers, like, how do they want to make a really good show, right? Well, if one team comes fourth in the first 3 heats, you don't want to be drawing dead in the last one, right? So we had in mind that it might be really top heavy. Maybe even more than just top heavy, maybe it's winner take all, right? So essentially whoever wins it gets in. And this leaves Kuhn in a position where, he could just go balls to the wall and try to win. And then, maybe some of the other teams have to ladder each other. So imagine this. Imagine, Kuhn wins. Like, well, I mean, again, yeah, there's a lot of really interesting dynamics, but in my guesstimate, I thought that first was going to be worth a lot. And again, essentially what I did for Kuhn is I kind of, by all of us screwing up, we made this game so much easier. If you guys remember, many years ago, Gus Hansen was on a show called Poker Superstars, which is a really fun show. And he's, at an 8-handed table in the final heat, and he has to win or he's gone. He open rips the first 10 hands, just open rip. And everybody else needed like one more point or something. So they had to fold aces theoretically, right? So he just moved, and then he ended up winning and he got in. I don't expect Kuhn will be in the same situation here, but we did not set up our anchor very well.
I was thinking he can't just play that strategy because he doesn't know what he's playing for. Yeah. That's the crazy thing about this is he knows he wants to win, but he doesn't know how important it is to win. He doesn't know what it's worth. He definitely can't take the Gus Hansen approach of ripping it out.
I will say this. We did look at the points difference between us and third place. And we're like, you know what? A second might do if they come fourth.
Yeah.
So our idea was partly, I mean, not that we could really manufacture it, but to bust out the team that was in third right now, make sure they finish fourth. That way, second maybe gets us. But again, like you said, it's a mystery in terms of what we're playing for.
And not only that, the mystery isn't going to be revealed, or we don't know when it's going to be revealed, right? We don't know if it's going to be right before the sit and go. We don't know if it's going to be when the 4th person busts out. We don't know if it's going to be at the end when their heads up. Maybe they'll sprinkle it on you when your head's up.
Yeah, Kuhn definitely went in blind. He just went in totally blind.
Pretty neat. Okay, let's get into a couple of the hands. There's some real doozies in this heat. The first one comes at 10,000, 20,000 blinds. Robin Poker opens for 50,000 with the ace-5 off in position. Maria defends her big blind with the ace-4 of hearts. So ace-5 off against ace-4 of hearts. The flop comes ace-10-6 rainbow. Maria checks. Lucas fires out a continuation of 40,000. Maria calls. Fairly standard up until this point. The turn is a 10. So again, ace-10, 6-10. And it goes check, check. Also fairly reasonable. Somebody could have called with a 10 there, and you want to play small pot if you're Maria, or if you're Lucas, who knows. River is a king. Maria looks to get some value. She fires 80,000 into 200,000. And you can hear Lucas going through his hand, right? So Lucas is a new player. He's kind of intimidated playing with his heroes, you can tell. And he starts talking through the hand. He goes, I don't think you would value it an ace. And then he folds. But all the way through, they're going to the back room going, he's not really going to fold here. Is he folding? What's he doing here? There's all kinds of chatter from the wizards saying, what is this guy thinking here at this point? Just call, and, it's you've got aces, and give it a call, four-handed. Other than Jungle Man, of course, everybody in the back room.
Except for Jungle Man, I was going to say.
Everybody else is hanging on what's going on, and Jungle Man's got his mouth open.
Ross, we need a shot
of Ross,
Jungle Man sleeping, because it was the most epic pose. He's in a suit with his bow tie and just completely passed out.
It was so funny. I was just howling as I was watching. I actually rewound it a couple of times, took pictures, sent it to my friends. I was like, this is too good. This is just perfect Jungle Man. But So, thoughts on the hand. So, again, sorry, I should finish. River's a king. Maria looks to get value, bets 80, and Robin Poker finds a fold. And everybody's like, I think Federer goes, what? What just happened? Everybody's just like, did that really happen, Terrence? Can you ever see yourself folding for 80 into 220 or whatever it was here?
No, definitely not for that sizing. I do say I feel for Lucas here because the first couple of hands are real rough on him. Even before this hand, we jumped over the first hand where he makes a pretty light peel with pocket sixes on like ace king 9 with a flush draw. Ends up binking a 6 and kind of gets the minimum. Yo viral in the block bets the river. He decides is a little worried about raising, so he just calls and he's like, I've got a set of 6s and like the hand nobody saw coming. And now here, so he's Adam, you mentioned he was like a new player. I don't know how new he is. I'm sure he plays like a lot of online stream, but what he's definitely new to is being under the lights, right. All this live poker, playing against superstars of the game in Maria, and Daniel in this heat is got to be a super rough spot for him. I'm a little surprised they chose him for this heat, to be honest, because it just puts him in a super tough position. But no, I mean, from a strategic perspective, it's going to be a chop a lot of times. Sometimes it's just nothing. Although it's Maria, like Maria could just have like missed gut shots and things like that. I don't see a reason. I can't find a reason to fold. It's interesting. One thing I learned through this podcast is when that's middle card pairs on the turn, that's often like a lead for the out of position check caller. Maria didn't lead here and went check. And then you see everybody in the back going, or everybody in Maria's team rather going, make it big, bet big, Maria, because he never has a 10. And it's true. Maria has all the 10s because she was the check caller on the flop. So even though she didn't bet the turn, she still has all the 10s because Lucas never checks a 10 back on the turn, because who checks back a 10 on ace 10, 6, 10? It doesn't make any sense. Although, in fairness, we did just watch him check a set of 6s on the previous hand, so maybe he would be the guy who checks a 10. But that's what all the wizards were sort of saying, was that if Maria bets big here, she's going to blow Lucas off of this pot. Turns out she only needed to bet 40% pot, and still blows him out of the pot. Yeah. So it's a tough look. If I'm Lucas, I'm not super happy with the edits to this point.
Daniel, before we get your thoughts on the hand, just very quickly, I want to ask you about that. Terrence brings up a really good point about playing at a TV table with all the lights on.
Let me just jump in here because I wanted to sort of defend Robin a little bit here in terms of his thinking. Okay, I think Robin went in there. I think a little bit trying to play too perfectly, right? Sort of like above the rim kind of stuff, right? And in this case, you can make a case for folding this ace. And here's the case that I'll make for you, right? Imagine you don't think your opponent is going to check call with 8-9, 7-8, and then just bet 40% pot as a bluff. Imagine it just feels like value 100% of the time, right? But what is value there? Is a king value really? Is she really going to bet a king? That's incredibly thin. So you're hoping to put up 40,000 to win 100 now. Right? Because you can't win the whole pot if you think that she's got the ace. If he goes in with the idea that she never bluffs in this spot, you can make the case. Again, I'm not saying that I would fold or I think it's the correct fold, but you can sort of see the wheels turning in terms of like how he got to this logic, because he already eliminated incorrectly that she wouldn't value bet an ace here, which is exactly what she did.
Yeah, that's what I say when we say that Robin's a new player. He's not like new to the game. You see it in the way he talks. Like he does understand some theory of poker. It's just the spot was tough for him.
And then sort of talking about him being at his first TV table, playing with his heroes, under the lights, under all the pressure about playing for a team. Like a lot of those guys, or a lot of these guys, don't have experience with that. And that's got to affect how he plays, Daniel, don't you think?
Oh, no, it's definitely a thing, right? He does stream a lot. He's always, doing stream, but it's a very different story to be like under the lights. Not only do you got to be concerned with making the right plays, you also now will be judged on social media, which wasn't really a thing when I started, and they can be harsh. And for a young kid, those mistakes will live on the internet for eternity, right? In addition to that, he's not even just playing for himself. He doesn't want to let his team down. So he's got first time on TV, lights, camera, action, playing for his own self, got guys in the background going, oh my God, am I going to do something really, really stupid? That just makes it more difficult for players like him. And for guys like myself and Josh and Kuhn and whoever else, we've been there, done that. So like, it's not even a thought. It's an afterthought. Yeah. So for sure, I went in knowing that he's going to be in that sort of case. And my intention was to make it even more uncomfortable for him anytime I was in a pop.
And you do, and we'll talk about this next hand in which you do. You play a hand against him at 40,000, 80,000. You open on the button to 160 with the Queen 6 of hearts. And Lucas defends in the big blind with King 9 of clubs. The flop comes King Jack 5 rainbow. He checks and you check back. The turn is a queen. And you can see... you can see that it's going to be a problem here because your team is like, oh shit, Daniel just hit second pair. This is a bad spot for us. He's going to lose some chips here, maybe. If Lucas checks again, maybe you fire here because you've got second pair head up in this spot. It seems reasonable. And he does check, and you check behind, which kind of makes your team go, oh, okay, we're not going to lose. Maybe we don't lose too many chips here. The river comes a 10. So again, King Jack 5 on the flop, Queen 10. Leaves a 1-card straight to ace high straight or a 9 as well, in which Robin Poker has a 9. He's got King 9 of clubs, so he's got the bottom straight. And you've gone check, 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 check. Your hand really looks like sort of an ace high hand here. You raise before the flop, you check for maybe he has some showdown value with the ace. And it gets to the river, and now he goes, okay, he checks over to you with the 4 line out there. And and I think Kuhn says even in the background, he goes, check, check, we lose no more money. Like Daniel, maybe he just checks back here. Daniel, you had a different plan for this river, didn't you?
Yes, I sure did. And it's funny hearing Kuhn go, yes, he was so excited. We don't lose any money, not even thinking that this is a spot where I would try to bluff at it. But here's the thing. And part of the show is, you're taking highlights. So you're not going to see every single spot. Up until that point, Lucas had been 3-betting a decent amount in these spots, right? And we were pretty shallow at this point. So when I'm raising on the button, I expect him to be jamming ace-X a lot of his ace-X, right? And as I said, that's how he's going to play it. So on the flop, I had a read that he flopped a pair, like a very strong read that he had a king or a jack. So if he has a king or a jack, it's never ace-jack. It's never ace-king. It's impossible. He'll never flat those hands. So he doesn't. So at that point, I'm like 100% certain that man doesn't have the nuts, right? But then he can't have a 9, right? He can have like king 9, jack 9, stuff like that. So I'm asking myself.
You even say after
I bet. Yeah. But so to get him off the hand, to get him off a 9, which if I think that's part of his range, I need to go big in this spot. So, because I raised button, I checked it twice. Like ace-X is very much a hand that I can have. Maybe an ace high that just gave up or something along those lines. So I decided to go big, and I bet full pot. 400K. And as I said, I knew he wasn't comfortable. So I didn't really want to let him think through the hand uninterrupted. And finally he looks over, he's like the clock, he doesn't want to waste the coin. And he says, all right, I'm going to fold this because of the speech play. And I'm going, phew, thank goodness that one worked. And then in the room, my boys are super stoked that we, because every pot at that stage is super crucial.
Yeah, and that wasn't just the only hand about speech play, right? I think in a previous hand, you had the 5-3 clubs, you raised. I think he had, he flops an open-ended straight, so I think he had 7-9, if I remember correctly.
I think that's super important. Yeah, so in the previous hand, on the board of ace 8-7-6 with 8-7-6 of clubs, Robin block bets the river. Daniel makes a bit of a speech. He says, when they lead small here, they just never have it. I'm going to pump it up. Daniel, to those who know, we know he always is nutted here. We know. But Daniel doesn't care that we know. Daniel only cares about the other guy in the hand right now. Well, when you've seen this too on the masterclass course, when you tell the guy he's got kings or whatever it is, you don't read the guy's hand and read him for a strong hand if you yourself are have a strong hand. So and then you show him the 5 of clubs. So actually, if he thinks about it, he should know you never have a bluffing hand with the 5 of clubs on that previous hand. There's no hands that makes any sense at all that you have a 5 of clubs.
Turn with 5 of clubs for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, so Daniel provided some context that it's kind of shallow. So he's supposed to, 3-bet jam a lot of his ace-X hands correctly. And there's this other context of this previous hand and this talking where he knows Daniel made nuts. So now in his head, he's thinking, well, last time Daniel was talking, he had it. I know he had it because there's nothing else he could have with the 5 of clubs. And again, if he thinks it through all the way. Daniel's actually like giving him a fair number of hints here that he doesn't have it, but he doesn't have it. He has just the little time. What is it, 30 seconds? How much time does he actually have?
You get a minute, I believe, but like, yeah, the clock starts ticking on 30 and it starts to feel, if your heart starts pumping when you look up.
Yeah, it's this giant screen in the background. Your heart starts pumping. Like 60 seconds is going to feel like about 7.5. And so under that pressure, I don't blame him for making that fold, even though it feels super weird. But like the clues are there. It's just, can you piece together the clues fast enough under that time pressure? And when we talked about this, like this is an arena that's new to him. It's not new for Daniel. Daniel knows what to do to make, I like what you said about you're just going to talk so much that, you're not being like Martin Cabral and just being so talking for the sake of talking to be annoying, but you are giving him you're running a lot of interference on his thought process, making him think the things that you want him to think.
No, very important you said that, because this hand, the whole thing happened 100%. Everything revolved around my flop read. So when you think about reading players and like how you make decisions, one little thing changes everything, because my flop read was, he's got a piece. So what do? I take a hand that c-bets here with queen 6, just try to pick it up. I check it back. I waved the white flag. I was done with this hand. I wasn't putting another chip in. Now I hit the queen. I'm still not loving it. If he bets turn, I might have just freaking folded for real, because I know he didn't have a jack. Now on the river, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You got to always be thinking, even when you wave the white flag, wait a minute, new scenario, based on that flop read, doesn't have this, I can. But it all came down to being like as certain as you can be that man had a king or a jack on the flop.
But you didn't think he had a 9, because it was funny, because if you had a 9, you might not, you probably didn't think you were going to get him off that.
I knew that if he had one, again, it's just so unlikely, right? If you know one of his cards is a king or a jack, like literally has to be exactly king 9 or, whatever. Like that's just a ridiculous cooler. But, hey, it worked against the 9 anyways. So
yeah,
I'll take it.
And I think he said something about, I folded because you called my hand. He talked about the speech play, but it was light and it was faint, but he said, you called my hand. And you did. You bet and you said jack 9.
Like, you called my hand, fair play. I'll fold because I'm going to fold because of the speech play.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, let's fast forward a couple of levels. Again, Danny, you said this heat went on forever. It's finally three-handed as Lucas runs 6-6 into Yoviral's kings. And now we get a three-way pot, three-handed. We get a three-way pot at 80,000, 160,000. It's anybody's heat at this point. As you said, chip leader has maybe 20 big blinds, so every hand here is very crucial. We got to be careful about every move we make here. Yoviral limps on the button with the jack 10 off. Daniel, you complete in the small blind also with the jack 10 off. And Maria checks in the big blind with jack 8 off. All the jacks are busy. The flop comes 7-5 deuce with 2 hearts. And it gets checked around. Nobody flopped anything. The turn is interesting. It's a 9. So again, 7-5 deuce 9 on the turn. Maria turns a double gutter, right? She's got the 6 and the 10 for the nuts. And Jungle, he says something hilarious at this point. He wakes up. Somebody woke up Jungle. Wake up Emil is now Wake Up Jungle. But he says, if I was Maria Ho for a day, I would just bluff nonstop, which was a hilarious line, because he's saying Maria's tight and he isn't, and he could get away with a lot of bombing here. Anyway, Daniel, you lead out for 240 on this turn card. Maria calls, and interestingly enough, and I know it's not a huge bet, but Yoviral calls with the gut shot and 2 overs on the button after Maria calls your bet. So the river comes a 7. It pairs the top card in the flop. So we're now deuce 5, 7, 9, 7. And you go into the tank thinking about what is my opponent's range here? Do they ever have 7s? And you decided to check it here. So give us your thoughts on the turn, about your lead. It just seems like you're trying to pick it up, get it. Totally understand that. And specifically Yoviral's call there on the turn.
All right, so yeah, it's not a very big bet. It's 1.5 big blinds, right? Because the big blinds 160. It just seems like a lot, because at that point, every bet counts. On this flop, when Maria checks the flop, I think she's going to bet a 7 a lot on the flop. Okay, because she's in the big blind, and why would you just check back and let any random card come off in a limped pot? So it goes check, check, check. Now the 9 on the turn, I'm like, all right, well, if Yoviral limped with something like king 4 suited, king 7, or like king 6 or something, and Maria just whiffed, I can pick it up here, and I've got equity if I get called, right, with the 8, 10, or the jack. So I go ahead and bet, hoping to get get it through. And they both call, which is problematic. And my plan when they both call was like, I'm going to bomb this river because I just don't feel like anybody's nutted here, right? So I'm going to bomb on a lot of cards. But then the 7 comes, okay? And here's where I literally couldn't sleep all night because of this hand. I could not sleep because I kept going over the sick freaking play that I missed in this spot. I elected not to bet it because here's the problem. If I bet, I think it's very likely one of them has a 9. It's just like I have Jack 10, so I block straight draws. What the hell else do they have? One of them probably has a 9, and I think a 9 calls, right? A 9 is not going to fold as played. So I figure, you know what? I got to just wave the white flag. I give it up. Now Maria bets 840. Folds to Yo Viral. I didn't think long and hard enough. Yo Viral actually did think about this with Jack 10. I couldn't count my chips. I'm not even kidding because, and Terrence, you can speak to this because I don't know if you've ever played with these, but we played with like 10K, 50K, like 250K chips. I've never played with
That's so weird. So weird.
I couldn't count them. Every time I was like, I would verbalize my bet because I don't know what the hell I got. So I was thinking in my head, I'm like, can I check raise here? But I'm like, I don't even know. I was thinking, while Yo Viral was thinking, this is what I was thinking. Can I check? I didn't know how much more I had. Like if she bets 840 and I make it like 1.1, I mean, like, can I really bluff there?
You've never had to ask yourself for a count before.
Right. And it's like, so, but in reality, I could have raised, I had like 1.6, she bet 840. If I check raise there, I win the pot. Because the thing is it's very unlikely that she has, a full house or a straight, she could have a straight and be slow playing there, but just a lot of the time going to raise that turn and just get it in. But yeah, it was a good spot I could have repped. And again, that came down to not reading, counting my chips right. But I couldn't sleep. Not only that night, I couldn't sleep. Like I kept thinking about that hand and like the whole time going, oh my God, I wish I would have. That would have been sick too. I know what it would have been. My boys in my room would have been like, whoa, freaking out, going crazy, but I missed it. So
I think it's interesting that both you and Yo Viral tanked and sort of probably both the same logic, like that Maria doesn't have the 7 because, she checked in second position. I personally think like I would check some 7s there when it's 3-handed because you're going to have to do so much check giving up that you have to just occasionally check the 7-3 once in a while and see what happens. So, I love the logic and I love thinking that it's there. I want to rewind it back to the turn where, Adam mentioned, Jungle saying if I was Maria, if I would bluff nonstop. Somebody else said like Maria's just going to win this pot. And they just predicted this pot right away. And
a few people did, right? They're all like,
you stop and think about why, right? And it's like, this is before the turn. As soon as that 9 rolls off, as soon as the turn action, why? Because what's going to happen is a couple of things are going to happen. Either Daniel's going to bet at it and they're both going to call, or Daniel's going to bet the size enough that Maria can't fold because Maria's can't fold here. She's got double gut shot, right? So she's not folding, or Maria just bets 2 streets and gets them both and gets the other 2 guys to fold, right? Like, so everybody's already predicted in their mind that unless, the bad card rolls off and it just happens to be an 8, then Maria's going to win this pot. I just thought that was the most interesting pot. You just see all the minds going like, nothing's even happened yet, but Maria should win this pot. And as played, she did, as it turns out. I mean, Daniel's mad at himself for not check bombing the river, but I think she's got some 7s sometimes.
That's the thing. But, like, is a 7 always calling even? Like, my line is super strong. Like, what the heck is my bluff? Like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? It would have been, that was the problem too, is I thought, well, she could have 7-8 and stuff like that. I just felt like because she didn't bet the flop on a board like that. And again, because there's 4 big blinds out there and the chip leader has 17, that's a lot of freaking big blinds. Do you really just want to let a card roll off when you have 7-8 on 7-5 deuce? And you can have 2 pair there. You have range advantage in the big blind, everything. You got it all going for you.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so Maria picks that pot up, and they show a few hands in a row, Daniel, of you just open shoving. Again, we're shallow here, so anytime you get the chance, you have to get 6s, 10-8 of clubs, and you just open rip, and it's that spot where they're going to need a big hand to call you. You just needed to get your recovery, get into a better spot here, and shoving seemed to get you there.
Yeah, no, it was a weird spot because like I was the shortest man on the totem pole, so there was no real waiting out everybody else. And just picking up a pot is such a significant amount of chips that I also felt like both of the other players, they have value in, playing tight because they're ICM laddering as well. I'm not so sure in retrospect they didn't seem all that handcuffed based on some hands you didn't see. Like I was getting jammed on here and there. But I thought, yeah, this is an opportunity now where if I play overly aggressive, pick up like 3 pots in a row, I go from like short man to chip leader, because it was that deep in the structure. So it felt like the play, but
it didn't even seem like you were over aggressive. It was like pocket sixes and 10-8 suiteds and even ace deuce over a limp. Like that's going to be a shove because when the guy's limping a huge percentage of hands with big blind ante, like none of these, they all seemed really standard for the structure.
For sure.
Yeah. And the final hand's interesting, right? So it's 3-handed, and Yo Viral's in the small blind. Maria folds the button. Yo Viral, and before he looks at his cards, he starts talking sort of a heartfelt soliloquy about poker after dark being the reason that he started playing poker and playing with his heroes here, which was kind of interesting because he's talking about how much he loves playing, how great it's Poker After Dark was to his career and playing with you guys. And he looks at his hand and it's ace king, and he just kind of quickly looks and he limps, setting the trap without really even thinking about it, which I thought was interesting. He still kept on talking about how great Poker After Dark is while limping with the ace king, setting the trap for you. You're in the big blind with the ace deuce, and you shove over his limp, and he snaps with ace king, and you don't improve. And he goes home, or you go home in third place, leaving Jason Kuhn in that must-win situation that we were talking about, even though we don't know what the payout structure is. Pretty standard play, or pretty standard hand there, right, Daniel?
But yeah, I think like the thing is him talking, like part of me is like, oh my God, I hope he's not trapping me here because that'd be bad. But when you're playing off of 14 bigs, 3-handed in a spot like this, you get an ace against the limp. Again, as I said, there's 3 full big blinds out there, right? I have an ace. He's going to limp fold a lot. There's a lot of value there. When he doesn't limp fold, sometimes he's going to have king, queen, king, jack, and I'm ahead, right? Other times I'm going to be like have 30% equity or whatever the case may be. But it seemed like a no-brainer because, again, ace deuce off, it doesn't play that well post-flop, So it's better as a shove pre and just try to print what the EV that was there. And I was disappointed to see, that he had the ace king suited. But I'm not mad about that play. Like the one that made me not sleep was not check raising that river against Maria.
It's definitely always concerning when a player starts telling a story. They look at their hand, they do the thing naturally, and they continue telling the story in a very natural way, in a very calm cadence. That's always a scary thing. As Daniel said, he's not shallow enough to be able to take advantage of that. And he's got the perfect jam hand with, like, if Daniel had shown up here with the king 5 off and ripped it over the limp, I would have said like, hey, did you not notice how he never shut up? But that wasn't the case here with like ace deuce. You have an ace like that blocks a lot of the strongest hands, and you're most of the time you're just supposed to win there. So unfortunate cooler, and good smart play by Yo Viral knowing the situation that he was in, and I thought it was just good poker in that hand on both sides.
And it doesn't matter because the ace flops and you're going to get it in anyway, right? So yeah, interesting. Yo Viral, who couldn't shut up in the room, kept going on. It was amusing, it was entertaining, but he was pretty quiet. Up until that point. From the editing, we didn't see all the hands, of course, but he was fairly quiet.
Yeah, at the table, he's certainly quiet. I think he's great. I mean, I know he's hit or miss in terms of his antics. I think it's great. I think it makes for great TV. I'm a big Yo Viral fan.
Good. So that after you bust out, that leaves Maria Ho from Team Diamonds heads up against Yo Viral of Team Spades. Of course, we talked about they've built up a nice lead here. They've finished first or second in every heat. Team Spades, nice cushion there. Daniel, you were able to catch up with Maria to talk about some of those hands in the heat. So why don't we just cut to that?
Oh, we are joined now by Maria Ho, otherwise known as Drunken Sailor Potty Mouth, or I don't know, Goody Two Shoes commentator. I mean, I think so far people have had a chance to see a little bit of a different side of Maria. So which Maria is the real Maria? Is it the Drunken Sailor Potty Mouth or the Goody Two Shoes commentator?
I think it's both and all of it. And I think all of my close friends would say the same, right? I feel like my professional persona is who I am, and that's the way I like to treat the game. And I like to show respect for the game, whether I'm a player or a commentator. But of course, I have some personality. I have like a fun side. I have a side of me that likes to curse. And when I'm not sitting at the table playing the game and having to be focused on that, then of course I'm going to let my expressiveness and my personality show a little bit.
I can verify. I have heard Maria curse. I have seen Maria kick back a bottle of vodka, tequila, no problem. Stay out to the dirty stay out, as they call it on Jersey Shore. You definitely have you have that, and it makes sense what you're saying to me. That the fact that when you're in an environment where it's a paid gig, you want to come off professional, but this was different, right? So you felt a little more comfortable kind of kicking back.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the first episode specifically, or like the first into the second, little bit of I don't know if you would call it drama, but kind of seemed like she was not ready to play. And you had some words about that. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with her and sort of how that all played out from your perspective.
Actually, I knew Kaina before this show, and she's somebody that I thought would be great for the show, and somebody that I felt like I supported in many ways throughout the show. And Kaina would be the first to tell people that as well, that she had come to me for a lot of advice throughout the show when she was, not sure what to do, or she was having a tough time. And I felt like I was there for her. In the heat of the competition, though, of course, when right off the bat, she seemed very just like not confident, but also a little bit like flustered by the situation. I wanted her to be able to have a good mindset, because it's bad for team morale, and it's also bad for her mentality going first if she didn't feel like she could win, or if she didn't feel like she was prepared. So I wanted to establish that right away. Maybe I was a little bit aggro in the way that I said it. Of course, the delivery matters. And so probably that had a little bit to do with how it came across. But I feel like Kaina can attest that I was a good teammate to her, and, we had a very good rapport. And, in the green room, there's a lot of things they don't show. Of course, they're going to show the most intense moment.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on it being too aggro. I think it was perfect. I think she was out of it at the moment. She needed some little bit of there's some coaches who are a little bit of hard ass, and you came with the tough love. You're like, no. None of this negative shit here. You're not afraid of anybody. You're going to beat anybody. And then of course, Josh had your back there too, because Josh was in there saying, you won fucking player of the year, not fucking round. Right. Yeah. So I sat, as a teammate and a coach, you gave her like exactly what you needed to hear, what you need to hear.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I felt like that was what I was trying to do. Like that was my intention in the moment for sure. And I don't know how it landed, but that was my intention.
No, I thought it was great. So this episode here, the third episode, you're, obviously featured. It was along with myself, and bluffed the shit out of me one pot. I couldn't sleep, by the way, that night at all, because I didn't check Raise That River.
Daniel, it's about time you lose some sleep over a hand you played against me, because I've lost some sleep over some hands I've played with you. So it's payback time.
Yeah, not a moment of sleep. Because when Yo Viral was in the tank against you in that hand, I was in the tank too, going, holy shit, if he doesn't play, should I just do this? And I was saying earlier to the guys, I couldn't count the damn stack. So I didn't know how many chips I had, because we were using those 50K chips.
Right.
But I wanted to go over a couple hands you played, if that's okay with you.
Of course. Okay,
so this first one comes up, and it's against Robin Poker, and you're in the small blind. You go ahead and limp with the Jack 6 off, 6 of diamonds in your hand. Robin checks back 6-5, and he's got the 5 of diamonds. Flop comes Jack 7, Deuce 2 diamonds. You go ahead and lead 40K. Seems pretty good here with top pair. He decides to peel with the 5-6, setting up a bluff for who knows what. Well, the turn's a big card. It's the 8 of diamonds. You decide to check here. I like it. And he bets 80K. You, of course, go into check call mode. Now the river is a 7, right? And in the back room, you hear sort of Kaina and Josh debating whether that's a good card for you or not, And, Josh was sort of convinced by Kaina's line. Anyway, you check. Now Robin bets 300 into 340. What's going through your head, and why did you come out with fold being the best play?
So I feel like I need to preface it with, I think my game is based on theoretical, conceptual, things I've studied. But I do have a live background, right? When I first started playing poker, I was a live player. And it wasn't until many years after I was already playing professionally live that a lot of these solvers came out, and that online really had more of a boom, where a lot of players then that were starting at that point were playing online first. So I feel like I've always tried to mix the two. I feel like I've tried to evolve with the game without losing the essence of my game that I think makes me good. And so yeah, am I like, I'm not all Josh Aryeh, right? Like I'm not all just game flow sometimes or like reading the deck or whatever, but that there is an element of that to my game. So I think going into that hand, Lucas felt very, very unsure at that point because you were getting in his head with all of your table talk. He had already lost a couple pots to you. It felt like he assumed that we were all underestimating him a little bit. And so that made him question his decisions. And maybe he didn't feel as confident in that moment. And so going into that hand, I just didn't really feel like he was going to be floating me really light on flops, even though he was in position. And I didn't think that he would be willing to bluff when at that point he hadn't really had the confidence, it seemed, to go with his reads, right? And so, yeah, I have a decent bluff catcher, right? If I'm going to play my hand as like a bet on the flop and a check call on the turn, I have a decent bluff catcher when we get to the river because I have the 6 of diamonds. But I also block some of the floats that he's going to have on that flop with like 8-6, 9-6, some of those that interact with like backdoor straight possibilities, essentially. So it's like I have a diamond, which is kind of good, but I have a 6, which is kind of bad. And I just didn't feel like he had a ton of natural bluffs on that run out either. And so, you know, again, in a limp pot, the ranges are super wide. And I just had to go with this decision that I didn't think he was going to try to bluff in that spot, given how his state of mind seemed at that point in the game.
Yeah. Did you consider at any point, because at this point, you know, we don't know what these gold coins are worth. Did you consider any point, because it seemed like you were really in the tank here and it went down to the wire before you folded. Did you consider using one of your own gold coins for a time extension? If not, why?
Not for that decision, no. I mean, his sizing on the river kind of polarizes what he has, but for that decision, I didn't think that it would be worth it for me to use a gold coin. It just, the pot wasn't huge. You know, it was significant, but it wasn't huge. And I was trying to not have to use a gold coin if I didn't have to. And so I thought it was a little too early on in the sit and go to do that.
So now you fold a hand and he just whips a bluff in your face, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, just for those that don't know what it's like to have that happen, I'm like, what are you truly feeling inside when he does that?
I think that moment perfectly encompasses the battle of like what's going on in my head with what I am going to allow myself to show at the poker table, right? Like that's a very real moment where in my head, I'm like, motherfucker, like all of the cursing that you see me do in the green room, I'm thinking that in my head, but I'm never going to let my opponent see that that's how I'm feeling, or they got the best of me, or they're getting some emotion from me. So yeah, of course I was upset. I felt like maybe I underestimated him in that hand or in that moment, and I regret that deeply. I try not to ever underestimate anybody, but I feel like there was a hint of that. And so, you know, but I played for so long that I know that I have to move on to the next hand. Like very quickly, I allow myself mentally to feel some type of way about it, whether it's like being upset or like at myself, mostly. But then I know to move on. I can very quickly just turn it around and like tell myself I got to focus on the next hand now. Yeah.
So overall, would you say then that him showing you was like, you were happy about it because it changed your perception? Because your perception was off, right? You had him as like, he ain't doing that. He does. And so you overall happy to see it.
100%. I always like to get information. So I think that absolutely helped me change the way that I perceived him to play, which is going to change the way I play against him.
Yeah. So the other hand I wanted to talk to you about, in the green room, you hear me say, this is the stupidest fucking hand I've ever seen. It is the stupidest fucking, and nothing you did, by the way, at all. It is just crazy stupid for two people to be sitting there with 15 big blinds and ace king against aces, just it's like a nothing pot, right? So I'm going to go over the hand for those that, just to refresh everybody's memory. Those of you watching already have seen it, but you're sitting on about 10 bigs with ace king and you go for the limp, which I think is a strong play, right? You want to have some traps when your head's up and hope that he jams like any ace or some goofy hands. And now, unfortunately for you, he has aces. So you're dead. You're done. It's over. Except, Viro being French, and I don't know, mean bet, I will check. He checks the aces, which you see like, the back rooms are going, what is this hand, right? So now the flop comes Queen Jack 7 2 diamonds, and he does his min bet, 300K. And this isn't a great flop for you. It's okay. You have overcards, you've got a gut shot, but you obviously can be behind against a lot of hands, especially when he leads. You call. Turns the king. Now he checks. You go for 470. He calls. River's a 3, okay? And this is where you broke everybody's fucking brain, okay? He checks this river. Fedor says, there's literally no hand she loses to. Nothing like that. Charlie says, ultimately, you make this check back. Charlie says, did she just soul read him, or was that terrible? So you tell us, Maria, was that you just playing awful, missing value, or was there a soul read going on?
I would like to say that it was a soul read, but I actually think it's neither, right? I think if I'm being completely honest, I feel like it was neither a soul read or me playing terrible. I mean, people saw a few hands before that, or I mean, more than a few hands, but in the context of the show, a few hands before that, where I went for value against you with second pair with ace jack in a single raise pot. So that's even more of like a thinner value spot because it was a raised pot, whereas this was a limped pot. So it's not that I'm not willing to go for value or that I don't have a clear understanding of my hand strength in that moment. But I also cannot take credit for saying, I looked at Yo and I just knew he had me beat. It was a combination, honestly.
You had a feeling, like there was instinct there that was like, something doesn't smell right.
There was something that Yo gave off, which you see in the edit. They actually, like, Yo asks me, like, and I was like, well, and then it, like, I'm about to say something, like, I'm about to tell him maybe why I checked. And then I stopped myself because I realized the game continues. We're still playing. There was definitely something that I noticed mannerisms wise, but I try not to only go off of that, right? Like that's not my only decision point for how I make my final decision. It's not like the only factor that goes into if I choose to call or bet there. And if you notice my turn sizing, it was very clear. I felt like I was setting up for the river because I think I had like, it was like 0.9 SPR or something with what I bet on the turn and what was in the pot going into the river. And so obviously when he checks to me on the river, I had every inclination to bet. It was only a matter of my sizing essentially. But as I was thinking about it and as I was looking at him, I did feel like I got a little bit of information that informed me a little bit more. But also I thought about it like, let me think about the way he played this hand. First of all, Yo is he plays unconventionally sometimes. He has leads in spot that a lot of people don't have leads. He also has weird sizings sometimes. And in a lot of ways, that's worked out to his favor because I think it makes him hard to play against, of course. But in that spot, I think against a limped button range off of 10 bigs, he knows I can have traps, right? But so it's kind of weird to lead like a queen jack X flop, I think, in that spot very often. And if you think about any potential strong queen X's or jack X's he has there, he would have put me all in pre-flop. So right. He doesn't have strong queen X's, strong jack X's there, in my opinion, because it's so easy to just put me all in pre-flop with all of those hands, like the ace jack, the queen tens, the jack 10 suited, all of those are going to be in his shoving range pre. And so I thought about the upside. Like the upside to me was like, okay, first I have a little bit of this tell on this person, but then the potential upside of betting my hand for value when I don't think I'm going to get called because he doesn't have any strong top pair. Like he doesn't have strong queen X. He doesn't have strong king X. He doesn't have strong jack X. So what is he really going to call me with regardless of the size that I choose? And so it was a combination of all of those thoughts of like kind of little upside that I don't get called by worse very often, given my effective stack size to start the hand. And then a little bit of not a full on soul read, but yes, am I going to use the skill set that I've cultivated over the years of trying to get a read off of someone or trying to decipher what their mannerisms mean? Of course I will. I will always do that. And in that situation, I landed on a check, which seems crazy. And I agree with all of you guys. That is the dumbest pot I've ever played with those two hands with 10 BBs. Like it's ridiculous. It's absurd. But, that's the beauty of poker, right? I don't think that you have to always go with what's theoretically correct. And you can have a lot of different reasons for why you choose to make a certain decision. And so like, I very strongly contend that I know how good my hand is in that spot, obviously, and that I had a plan going into the river, which is how I decided to size my turn bet. But it's okay to change your mind.
Yeah, I actually, while you were breaking down the hand, you made a very good point about the queens that he's going to have there. And the 3 in a normal situation is a brick. However, in a big blind situation where it's limped, King 3, Queen 3, all of a sudden become real, and he's going to check those hands on over to you anyway. So yeah, I like the way you broke it down, because it feels like you make a good point. You didn't feel like he had the kind of hands they're going to call, so you take the safe route, and you look like a genius, and you are, right? So you end up losing, right? Sort of crapshooty at that point, but you pick up a valuable number of coins for your team. So going into the last match, the next episode, like, how are you guys feeling in the back room, like, about where you're sitting?
Okay, well, first of all, I have to say I haven't been able to read like all the comments that people have been saying on social media. But one thing I have been reading is people feeling like maybe Jungle had gotten into it with us or something, which is why he like was closing his eyes or didn't care or wasn't paying attention. And that's not the case at all. Like, y'all know we flew to South Korea for this, right? People are just straight up jet lagged. We actually had a really good team dynamic. You know Josh very well, and Josh is always like fun and entertaining. And so we had a good rapport in that sense. And Jungle was just honestly tired. And, you saw once Kaina was done with her round, she was very like gregarious and happy, and the pressure was off and she was good, And so I just want to dispel any rumors that we had gotten into it as a team in any way before we played. And so, yeah, I feel like team morale is pretty high at this point. Like, obviously, after Kaina lost the first round, Josh went in there and did what he needed to do. And I felt like I put up a pretty good results. And so at this point, we're all really just anti-sweating your team, Daniel.
Yeah, for sure. It seemed like all the rooms kind of were, and I get that. But I'm curious, so this is, when this show happened, I told everyone that I knew that this is going to be the best poker show ever, the best one I've ever been involved with, been a lot of fun. Yeah, your thoughts on sort of like what you've seen in terms of it being unique and different, and, it seems like we've got that kind of kitchen, that cool water cooler talk where after the episode, everyone's talking about it. So your thoughts on just the experience overall?
I thought the experience was great. I think that it's important that we do have a little bit more of like the character developments in poker, right? The reason why WSOP in the beginning was so cool to follow was because you had these, people that you were rooting for, and you heard some of their backstories, and that made you want to root for them. And so I think there is that rooting interest because you see more of people's personalities in this. So I like that. And I actually like that not only did, I get to play with people that I've known for a long time, but I also got to meet new people in poker and really kind of see what they're all about. And that's always nice too. And so I think the environment was actually cool. And I love the way that the poker community has responded to it. I think we have gotten to a place where everything in poker feels sometimes a little formulaic, and so it's cool to try something new and different. And from someone who comes from a reality show background, being on The Amazing Race, I can honestly say that, you never know how raw people are going to get until you put them in a situation where there's a lot on the line, there's high stakes, they're competing, and they just end up forgetting that they're being filmed.
Exactly. You make a great point about that. For those that never been on reality TV, like the first hour, you're on camera, so you're on your best behavior. But hour 6, hour 7, jet lag, you just flew to Korea. You're sitting in the same room with 3 people. They're talking. They're saying dumb stuff. You're saying dumb stuff. All of a sudden, you get those, beautiful moments. I had one with Jason because I was tired too. I had one. It didn't show because it, didn't make the cut. But like, I was like, I'll bet you $500,000. That's not a mistake. And so but I think that's kind of like what makes it special, right? Normally, like you said, the formulaic way to poker show works is there's a final table, you have some commentators, everybody's a robot, and they film it. But this is very, very different and well received. And, you've been great on it. I think like I'm happy that people get to see a different side of you, because I've known you for longer than I want to admit, but we've known each other a long time. And I think it's really, really great for you to sort of feel free to be yourself in that kind of environment.
Yeah. And I think it's nice that, yeah, I mean, I'm obviously a multifaceted person, and I didn't realize that people were only really seeing one side of me. But again, for me, I've always wanted to approach poker with a certain type of professionalism, but that doesn't mean that I'm, that I don't have a personality. That doesn't mean that I'm not like like that I don't cuss and whatever. I think it's really weird that people might have assumed that. So I don't mind that people get to see me. I think they're all sides of me. I think they're all me. There's not like one real side and one not. It's just different parts of who I am that hasn't been shown until now.
Well, I can certainly attest that you are fun at a party. You are the party, and I want to thank you for coming on and sharing a little bit. And well, obviously we're not going to spoil anything going forward, but if your team advances, maybe we'll have you on and talk about future hands in the future. Future hands in the future. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
Awesome to hear from Maria. She did well to get her team in position to advance past the first set of matches. Jay Kuhn now needs to get to work. We don't know the distribution of medals here in the final match, but let's assume that he needs to win this. Otherwise, it's going to be a quick turnaround for you, Daniel, in that long flight to Korea and the rest of your club's team. We end the show with Kuhn bluffing off a chunk to David Williams. So now he's really kind of climbing an uphill battle. I think he had the 8-9 of diamonds and tried to get it through 3 streets and ran into 2 pair with David there. And that put him, I think, not too bad. Got him down to about 1.6, 1.5 in that range. So he's not dead by any stretch, but it is the uphill battle right there. That's going to do it for another episode. For recapping Game of Gold, episode 3, we're going to do episode 4 on Friday. If you haven't seen them, head on over to GG Poker's YouTube channel and check out episode 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be out on Friday. We're not sure what's going to happen, or this is kind of the cliffhanger, not so much in what happened right at the final end of it, but what's going to happen with the distribution of medals. Looking forward to that. And thanks to you guys for getting together. Thanks to Maria for jumping on and giving us her thoughts. And we will talk to you soon.